Our presentation is on cults.
So cults are social groups that are defined by its unusual religious or spiritual beliefs or by a particular common interest. So when we talk about cults, we usually refer to them as dangerous or brainwashing, and most people would never want to be part of a cult. So today we're going to explore and talk about why and how people join cults and the psychology behind it. So to clarify, there's different types of cults. So the first one is destructive cults, and those are highly manipulative, and they physically injure or kill people either in the cult or outside the cult. And these cults can be described as a sociopathic syndrome, since the members often go through behavioral change, identity loss, alienation from family, and often the leaders are very controlling and manipulative. And also there's doomsday cults, which basically believe in apocalypse, and they predict the end of the world or a huge transformation of the world. So for example, when there was the millennium shift from 1999 to 2000, a lot of people predicted the end of the world. Another type are the polygamist cults that practice polygamy, which is marriage between more than two people. Political cults are interested in political ideology, and they're often very far left or very far right on the political spectrum. And the last two are racist cults and terrorist cults, and they are very destructive and highly controlling and manipulative.
So the first case study of a cult was basically People's Temple. In this cult, there was one leader, and he basically preyed on the African American community in the early 1960s, 70s, because they were still alienated. He gave them a place, a church, that they could go to, that they could join, and that they could feel accepted. And so once he did that, he decided, once he had enough members, he moved everybody out to a secure remote village, and then they lived there for a year or two, and they just did normal things, they had a normal community, right? Then law enforcement became involved due to unforeseen things, like there was some shots on the compound, right? So law enforcement decided to take action and go into it, but before they could get there, the cult leader, his name is Jim Jones, he made Kool-Aid, but the Kool-Aid had cyanide in it, and he basically had everybody in that area drink the Kool-Aid, and so they wanted to. A lot of them wanted to. A lot of them knew that there was poison in it. A lot of them gave it to their children as well, and so then basically the police came and found over 900 bodies.
So our first example of a cult, or second example of a cult, is the Manson family. So the Manson family was a cult back in the 1960s and 70s in California, and the leader was Charles Manson, and there were around 100 members, and most of them were young middle-class women, and these women were drawn to this cult because of the leader was very charismatic, and they were drawn by the communal living and the hippie culture. So they all lived an unconventional lifestyle with a lot of drugs and crimes, and the interesting part is that this leader the members believed he was, or thought of him as Jesus, so they just did whatever he told them to do. So what they're most famous is the murder of well-known actress Sharon Tate and the LaBianca couple.
The murders are quite unpleasant, but to start, basically Manson learned to play guitar from a former inmate, and by then he became obsessed with the Beatles. And in one of the Beatles songs, there's an expression, helter skelter, and it signifies an apocalyptic race war that he believed would break out between blacks and whites, and he said it was imminent. And basically he instructed his followers to go and start by murdering a producer who previously rejected Manson, and murder anyone on his land. Little did they know that the producer was actually out of town, but the wife, Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant, and many of her friends were on the house. So they went there and then they cut the phone lines and they shot a delivery boy, and then they went inside and stabbed everybody else. And with the blood they wrote pig on the wall. And then the following night is the LaBianca murder. It was a grocer and his wife, and they were both tied up and then stabbed. And then they wrote Helter Skelter on the fridge with blood. So, yeah.
So the psychology behind cults usually revolve around brainwashing and manipulation and paranoia and self-incrimination. The cult leaders usually bring in their members by giving them things that they want or something that they lack, such like self-love or just attention or any sort of form of affection. But then because the cult leaders want to use them for whatever the cult has to provide for, this leads to very negative psychological impacts in the future after someone realizes that they need to leave the cult, and this could affect them psychologically and mentally a lot. But the cults come off to be very attractive and appealing, which leads people to join, because many would think why would anyone want to be part of that kind of stuff, but they make a way for each person to find a way. No?
So what draws people to a cult? Because usually everybody in this room could probably say they will never join a cult in their life, right? But that's what a lot of people who have joined cults would say as well. Sometimes they don't even know that they're joining a cult. Maybe they just think that they're joining a community. And basically the reasons that they join are the 3 C's. Basically, they seek compassion, comfort, and a community, basically. So these are usually people who have been cast aside or drawn out. For example, in the People's Temple cults, they were the African American people who had been ostracized by other white people. So they came together and just let this one man rule them because they gave them all the comforts of this. And other cults, they also draw you in with drugs. So they attract a lot of drug addicts, they attract a lot of runaways. People join them because they feel left out and they want a place to be. And a cult is the place to be, I guess.
Oftentimes it's quite hard to leave a cult because they have either psychological or physical dependence. So drugs. It's okay. So drugs, like she said, they would lure people in and get them hooked on drugs, so then they can't leave and start a better life. And then as far as psychological, a lot of times people's families are also involved in cults, so it's hard to leave your family and everything you know. And if you join a cult from the outside, then oftentimes you leave your family and everything you know to join the cult, and so it's hard to adjust back into mainstream society with no one there to help you adjust back in. So yeah.
Thank you.